All right, well, welcome, Jason. It's so good to see you again. I haven't seen you in forever. It's been at least 2 years, and we've done so many things. We were talking before the show, and I feel like we've known each other about 10 years. And I have to tell you, your work has changed my thinking and clarified my thinking. I love what the Daily Mail said about you. I'm going to read it. It says, "The doctor who invented intermittent fasting."
So I'm a kidney specialist, actually. So I train very much conventionally. I did medical school in Toronto, and then I went to California, Los
Yeah.
Angeles, for a couple of years to do my specialty training. And I finished around 2001. Then I started practicing. And of course, there was a lot of increase in obesity and type 2 diabetes over that period of time. So I became very interested in the question of diabetes because diabetes was the main cause of kidney disease. And the thinking at the time was really that type 2 diabetes was this sort of chronic progressive disease, meaning once you got it, you had it for life. And I thought, well, that's not right. It's actually completely untrue.
Wow.
Anybody who knows knows anybody knows that if you lose weight, that diabetes often goes away. So the question is not, is it chronic and progressive? It's not some inevitable thing like aging. It's a reversible thing. So if it's reversible, you need to try to reverse it. But the key is the weight loss, of course, and not giving more medications, which was, of course, the standard, what I had been taught, what virtually every doctor was taught was that, oh, you have type 2 diabetes, here's the medication. Instead of, you have type 2 diabetes, let's change your diet, get you to lose weight, and then you can reverse it, right? Which is a completely 180 degree, opposite way of thinking, but much better, right? So I became very interested in weight loss and I started thinking about it. So again, I was trained in this whole calories in, calories out thing. And the part that's weird is that none of that is actually true. And it sounds so simple. It's sort of deceptively simple, but completely wrong.
Whoa.
And it's in the way you have to think about calories. So let's take an analogy, for example. People say, well, let's look at the energy balance equation, which is body fat, right? Body fat is a store of energy. The body stores energy, food energy, which is calories, in the form of body fat. So if you have excess body fat, and then body fat equals calories in minus calories out, right? So then people always take that and say, well, from there, you say that you must eat less or burn less, right? And you have to, or they say something like you must have a caloric deficit, right?
That's
so
the word.
the
Yeah.
problem is, and you see all these, people who should really know better, say this kind of thing, but it's really stupid because remember that if you have too much body fat, yes, it does mean that calories in exceeded calories out, but it doesn't tell you anything about what to do about it, right? If you say that body fat equals calories in, calories out, or increased body fat equals calories in greater than calories out, that's what it is. It doesn't tell you that it isn't caused by it, right? If you say that calories in is more than calories out, you want to know why the calories in are greater than the calories out. So people always take that next step and say, well, it's because you didn't have willpower or you ate too much or whatever. But that's not the case at all. Remember, there's 3 variables here that have to balance. So there's never a caloric deficit.
Yeah.
Body fat equals calories in minus calories out, which means that if you eat fewer calories, which is what everybody tells you, what happens is that there's 3 variables: body fat, calories in, calories out. You reduce calories in, you can balance that equation by either losing body fat, yes, or you can balance that equation by reducing your body's energy expenditure, which remember, you don't control. It's not exercise. Most of the calories you burn are for your brain, your liver, your kidney. You cannot control, oh, I'm going to tell my kidney to burn more calories because I want to lose weight. You can't do that, right? So nobody can control their basal metabolic rate like that. It's not a conscious thing. So therefore, if you simply eat less, fewer calories, which is what everybody says works, it doesn't work because you can either lose body fat, which is possible, or you can reduce energy expenditure. So if you go to the medical literature and look at virtually every single study done in the last 50 years of nutrition, what actually happens when you reduce your calories in? do you, one, lose body fat, or do you, two, reduce your energy expenditure?
Mhm.
In every single study, energy expenditure goes down, right? So you eat less, you burn less, and your body fat is relatively unchanged. So that's the
Wow.
science. So when the people say, oh, you just have to count calories, you just have to reduce your calories. No, because calories in goes down, calories out can also go down. So therefore, body fat has not changed. So it's not inevitable that if you eat fewer calories. Same thing when you exercise. If you increase your exercise, therefore increase your energy expenditure, calories out goes up. So there's three variables. You can either balance that with an increase in intake, or you can, or you can lose
Yeah.
body fat.
Yeah.
Again, what happens? In almost every single case, you eat more, right? So you
Yeah.
exercise more,
Yeah.
then you eat more. Increase in body fat equals calories in greater than calories out, which means that in any case, in any place where you see calories in greater than calories out, it equals weight gain. So if you say weight gain is caused by calories in greater than calories out,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That means you're just saying weight gain is caused by weight gain. It's like saying hurricane equal winds greater than 74 miles per hour, right? So if you say, okay, I have winds greater than what causes a hurricane? And you say, well, it's caused by winds greater than 74 miles per hour. It's like, no, that is the definition of a hurricane, right? So if you
Right.
say you're gaining body weight, that is by definition, that is the exact same thing as saying calories in is greater than calories out. It isn't caused by calories in greater than calories out. It is calories in minus calories out. So you don't
I
know
th-
what is causing it. Because what
okay.
always bothers me is that you have a doctor, you have all these doctors out there that say it's all about calories in, calories out. That's all it is.
They say
This
this,
diet is that.
Jason.
And I always think these doctors, it's a terrible argument, because when these doctors say that, like, do they not realize that that person in front of you who's been trying to lose weight for the last 30 years is a bigger calorie expert than you will find virtually anywhere? It's like a PhD level,
Yes.
expertise in calorie
They've
counting.
been looking
Okay.
at labels since they were teenagers, probably, right?
Probably since they're like 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that, like, do you not realize that this person that you're dismissively saying, oh, it's all about calories, it's like, there is no greater expert in this room than that person who has been trying to lose weight. It's not just, it's horribly, like, to say that is horribly dismissive, right, to these
Wow.
people.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it basically is saying you're actually really stupid because it's all about calories, right? You're so dumb. It's all about calories, and it's because you have no willpower, right? It's such a dismissive argument. It's a
Yeah.
horrible argument, and it leads to this bias against overweight and fat shaming and all that, because it's like, well, I told you the solution. It's calories in, calories out, which actually isn't. It's the definition, right? Losing weight is caused by, how do you lose weight? Well, calories in minus calories out. Well, replace that with lose weight. So you lose weight by losing weight. Like, it's a circular argument. You can't get it. It's sort of like saying, okay, um, if you have alcoholism, it
Yeah.
equals alcohol in minus alcohol out, right? And it's like, oh, so I just solved world alcoholism, right? World alcoholism. I just solved the problem. Just drink less alcohol. And you'd say, that's stupid, right? That's really, really dumb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because obviously the question is not whether alcohol in is greater than alcohol out. The question is why. If somebody is addicted to alcohol, that
Yes.
is going to lead to in alcohol in greater than alcohol out, which is going to cause, by definition, alcoholism. Okay, so
Hmm.
let's flip that and say you have a food addiction, which
Hmm.
is causing you to increase calories in greater than calories out, which causes weight gain. Is it a calories problem?
No.
Absolutely not. It's an
No.
addiction problem. Same
It
with the
is.
alcohol, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Suppose you're depressed and therefore you drink alcohol, which causes alcoholism. Is the problem alcohol in minus alcohol out? No, that's dumb. The
No.
problem is depression. You
It's the
need to treat
mindset. Yeah.
depression, right?
Yeah.
So now, again, flip it. Say you're depressed and you eat. because of the depression.
Yep.
So calories in is greater than calories out, which causes weight gain. Is the problem the calories? Absolutely not. It was the depression, or it was the refined foods, or it was the ultra processed foods, or it was eating too frequently, or it was the emotional eating, or it was the mindless eating. Those are the problems that lead you to the calories in greater than calories out, which is by definition obesity. It didn't cause obesity. It is obesity. It is the weight gain. That is by definition weight gain. Your body has a set weight. That means it sets a weight that it wants you to be at, a certain body fat percentage. If you gain weight, your body's going to try to burn it off. If you lose weight, your body's going to try to make you hungry and therefore eat more. So if you take somebody who is a certain weight and you drop their weight, you make them lose weight. Well, two things happen. One, they get hungrier. And it's not just some voodoo psychology. You can measure hunger hormones. You can measure satiety hormones. They are physiologically hungrier than they were before they lost weight. Why? Because the body wants them to gain that weight back up.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is that the amount of calories that they burn goes down, right? So your basal metabolic rate falls. Again, why? Well, if you can control what you eat, so you might be hungry, but you decide not to eat. So the body says, well, your weight is too low. I want you to gain weight. And if you're not going to eat, then I'm just going to reduce the number of calories that I spend so that you gain weight. Just like if you have a budget, right? Then and you're not making more money, you got to spend less. Same thing. The body says,
the body knows. Yeah.
The body knows. So I have this certain number of calories coming in. I can't, access my body fat. So therefore I'm going to burn less. Right. So the whole thing is that it's this body set weight that's really important, because it's like a thermostat. Right? It's a thermostat in your room. So say you have room temperature. You set a room temperature at like 72 degrees, for example. And you might say that, hey, the temperature in your room is heat in minus heat out, right? But what controls the heat in minus heat out is the thermostat, right? It gets too cold, it turns on the furnace, turns up the heat, gets too hot, turns on the air conditioning. So this is the thing, that the calories people are like the people who say, well, it's all about heat in minus heat out. So therefore, if you want to heat up the room, I'm just going to get a little space heater. I'm going to plug it in the wall. I'm going to turn it on. I increase heat in. Therefore, the room is going to get warmer. Is it? No, it's not.
Yeah.
Why? Because as the room heats up, the thermostat is going to sense that and turn on the air conditioning.
Yes.
Bring it back down, right? So the problem is, and so the people who say, well, it's all heat in minus heat out, so I'm just going to increase heat. Well, that's the same argument as the calories people, right? They say it's calories in minus calories out. I'm going to reduce my calories in. I'm going to eat less, with the idea that the amount that they burn is going to stay the same. That's the assumption. That is not true. It has never been.
So well said, Jason. So well said.
For years. What's crazy is that the studies, there were definitive studies that showed this whole body set weight 30 years ago. So we've known about it for 30 years.
30 years,
Yeah, they just don't tell you about this. But everybody knows it's true. Everybody knows that you go back to your original weight. So the problem of weight loss is not calories in minus calories out any more than it's heat in minus heat out. It's how do you control the thermostat? Think about it this way. If your body has this body fat thermostat, then you need to know how to control the thermostat in order to get your body fat in the right range. Just like your room temperature, you cannot just add heat or add cooling, because the thermostat is going to counteract what you're doing. And we know that the body does that. So it's how do you adjust your body fat thermostat up, and how do you adjust it down? And we already know this because everything in your body runs on hormones. So insulin is the main hormone you have to be worried about, but there are others. Insulin, when it goes up, when you increase insulin, people gain weight, right? We know this because we give people insulin as a drug, and there is one side effect that every person who takes insulin knows about. That's weight gain. So if you give insulin, you are gaining weight, which is really that ratcheting up of your body fat thermostat. When you give insulin, you haven't given anybody calories. There's no calories in that insulin. You haven't increased their exercise or decreased their exercise. When you give insulin, you don't tell them, oh, you should exercise less, right? Insulin is just a hormone that ratchets up your body fat thermostat. Your body now says, well, I shouldn't be 150 pounds. I need to be 180 pounds.
Wow.
How am I going to do that? I'm going to suck away more calories, right, into body fat because I don't have enough. So you eat your normal meals, but your body now with the insulin sucks all your energy, all those calories into body fat. Now you have no calories for the rest of your body. Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You think about insulin. What is its job? Its job is to store body fat. Intermittent fasting, because when you don't eat, insulin falls. When you do eat, certain foods raise insulin more than other foods, and those are the refined carbohydrates do it more than anything else.
And that's number 2.
Sugary drinks and, refined carbohydrates being things like French fries and white bread and, that kind of thing. White
bagels.
And again, it's probably not new, like cutting down refined carbs. A lot of people know that already causes, weight loss. In fact, you can see this, even back in books like 150 years old, people were talking about, I had to lose weight, so I just cut out bread and sweets, and they lost weight. So it's not a new idea. Everybody knew it. In fact, it was actually the dominant idea for weight loss for most of, from 1850 to say 1970. It was only this whole low fat era that brought in this whole calories thing.
And that was in the 70s. And that was a time when Dr. Atkins, you remember Atkins? If we're old enough, we remember who that was. He said bacon and eggs and things like that. Shockingly, when you do eat those things, people lose weight because it doesn't raise insulin.
So if you think about it, what happened was that people didn't know what caused heart disease, right? There's this huge epidemic of heart disease in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. And people said, well, we don't know what caused it. Now, the diet in America had not changed. So, in fact, they were eating about the same level of fat as they were and yolks and stuff as they were. But in the 50s and 60s, a huge spike in heart disease. And everybody's like, why? Now, when you look back, it's obvious. It was smoking. People were smoking more. They were through the war and everything. Everybody smoked back then, right? You had the smoking and non-smoking section in the restaurant. You had the little ashtrays in the airplanes. Of course, the tobacco companies never admitted that. Yeah. So people are like, why is there heart disease? And somebody said, well, it's because of the fat in the diet, which made no sense because the fat in the diet was the same. But there's this easy to think about thing, which is that, the fat is going to clog your arteries. And so therefore that, just because of that, which has no scientific basis whatsoever, that's what caused the whole low fat movement. So eventually it became sort of government policy and everything. But if you say, okay, so what studies have definitively proved that eating fat caused heart disease? 0. There were 0 studies in the last 50 years.
Is it the big zero there, right?
Absolute 0. And this led to the so-called French paradox in the 80s, which, if you remember, was all these, again, it's like people think they're smart, but they weren't that smart because these doctors were like, why does the French, with all their cream and their butter and
they love butter. And I love butter.
They're putting butter everywhere. They're eating all this saturated fat. And these Americans are eating, rice cakes and stuff, right? Super low fat. But the Americans had 3 times the heart disease that the French had with all their saturated fat. And the answer was, of course, the saturated fat wasn't that bad for you. The Americans were eating tons of refined carbs. They're getting fat and getting diabetes, which actually caused a lot of heart disease. They were eating the margarine, which turned out to be full of trans fats, which is
even worse. Yeah.
That was even worse. So that was the so-called French paradox. Then by the 2000s, people were looking at the Mediterranean diet with all its fatty fish and avocados and olive oil, and again, a higher fat diet.
Yeah,
And it
and
turned
more
out
meats and fish and all that.
meats and nuts and stuff. Nuts were like so high in fat. Remember avocados? Nobody ate avocados through the 80s because it was full of fat.
Yeah.
Then everybody's like, oh, they're so healthy for you. It's like, it's still full of fat, but the fat wasn't bad for you. Then they had to call it healthy fats, right?
Healthy fats. There you go.
The whole thing was crazy but in the meantime, because the Americans had switched to rice cakes and white bread
and hydrogenated oils and these fake fats, the seed oils, right? The seed oils. Yeah.
And the government actually encouraged all these processed foods because you could process the fat out of them, right? So they thought they were doing people a favor. So we were eating ultra processed foods. We're eating tons of carbs, tons of refined carbs, gaining weight like crazy, right? So there was a huge epidemic of obesity.
And the reason being, a little side note, Jason, insulin levels were staying not just constant, but they were going up. Because of the refined carbohydrates.
Because of the refined carbs, yeah. So when you're eating when those French people were eating all their saturated fats, they weren't raising the insulin. So you think, okay, well, what does insulin do, right? So if you say,
talk to us.
What does insulin do? So we know that when insulin goes up, so when you eat, insulin goes up, and this is the normal job. It's not a bad hormone. This is just a normal job. It's just that insulin, when it's too high, is going to lead to weight gain. So insulin's job is to tell your body that, hey, food is coming in. So therefore, we need to store food. We need to store this food energy, which is calories, and it stores it as body fat. So when you eat, insulin goes up, and it does two things to body fat. It tells you to store body fat, and it stops you from breaking down body fat. Okay? So if you think, okay, well, now suppose you have a situation where insulin levels are doubled or tripled or quadrupled. What's going to happen? Well, your body's going to store a lot of energy as body fat, and it's not going to burn any energy as body fat. You're not going to burn any body fat. You're going to store it, right? So it's only when insulin falls that you can actually burn body fat. So it's like, okay, well, that's not too hard to imagine that this is going to be a problem if you're trying to lose weight. Again, let's take a situation. If you eat 2,000 calories in, and you burn 2,000 calories. Okay, so you're equal. Nothing. You're not gaining weight. You're not losing weight. Now you reduce your calories in to 1,500 because people said, but you cut your fat. You eat all the time because people say you should eat 10 times a day. So your insulin levels are still very high, but the foods that you're eating are super, super high in refined carbs, which is going to spike your insulin. So what's going to happen to those calories that you eat? Well, because your insulin's much higher, it's going to suck it all into body fat, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what insulin's job.
Yeah.
All of that. So you eat 1,000 calories. Now your body shoves it all directly into your body fat. Well, what's going to happen is that the rest of your body has nothing, right? So then you're like, oh, my liver, my kidney, my heart, I need energy. You need to go eat, right? So then you get hungry and then you go eat. Well, what just happened here? Well, yes, calories in went increased over calories out, but why? That's the question. You got to get that deeper. Why? Because you sucked all the energy into your body fat stores. It's just like if you went to Costco and you bought like too much food, right? And you shoved it all in your refrigerator, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because the refrigerator is the store of food. So you shove it all in. Now your fridge is overflowing.
Packed.
But you're like, I have nothing to eat. Why? Because you shoved it all in your fridge. Then you go, I need to go to Costco again, right? So it's like, okay, that's the situation with your body. You took the food, but the calories went directly into body fat because of all that insulin. So you said, oh, I need to go eat more. Now contrast that to you eat, lean, you eat low carb foods, right? So you're going to eat
healthy proteins and healthy fats.
Healthy proteins, healthy fats.
Cut down the carbs in general. Yep.
Yeah, because carbs are going to spike.
And what happens? We then access the stored.
Yeah. Well, if you eat and you have all that calories, but your insulin's not that high, you're not going to shovel it into your stores. You're not going to shovel it into fat. So therefore, your body has plenty of energy to use, and therefore you don't get hungry an hour later because your body has plenty of calories to burn, right? As opposed to the insulin partitioning it all away so that you can't use it. Same thing when you try to lose weight. If your insulin is high, say you cut down, so now you eat 1,500 calories, you're burning 2,000 calories. So where are you going to get, you can't, that, remember, this is a balanced equation. So that does not balance. If you have 1,500 coming in and you have 2,000 going out, now your insulin levels are super high. Well, guess what? You can't access any of your body fat because insulin blocks fat burning.
Yes.
So therefore you have 1,500 coming in, 2,000 going out. You don't have access to your fat stores. That's not balanced. You can't do that. In fact, the body's only option is to reduce its energy expenditure to 1,500. So now you're eating 1,500, you're burning 1,500, you're not losing weight. The difference is if you allowed those insulin levels to fall, say with intermittent fasting, 1,500 is coming in, 2,000 is going out, you allowed insulin to fall, so now you can access the stores of energy in your body fat. You take 500 out from your body fat. Boom.
Wow.
You're all done. So if you say take your high carb meal, so you take at breakfast, you take a banana and orange juice, right?
Yeah.
So you take, say, 500 calories or 1,000 calories, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's super. Your insulin spikes way up because it's lots of refined carbohydrates. So all of those 500 calories goes right into body fat.
Whoa.
Now by 10 o'clock, 10 in the morning, you're like, oh, I'm ravenously hungry, right? Which is, of course, what happens. Like you eat white bread and jam in the morning, it doesn't keep you full for long. Everybody knows that because your insulin, your glucose goes up, your insulin goes up, then it crashes because it's so refined. By 10 o'clock, you're ravenous, so you go get yourself a low-fat muffin, right?
Yeah.
Now you do the same thing. Insulin spikes up, glucose spikes up. By 12, you're crashing. And then you go eat more. So what's happening
just keep
is
storing.
Yeah,
right?
you're pulling it all into storage. That's where all your calories are going. So at the end of the day, you're eating, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, because you haven't been able to stay full. Versus, say you eat a vegetable omelet in the morning. Well, you eat the same 500 calories, but none of that goes into storage because insulin's not down, right? So all of it stays around for you to burn. Well, at 10 o'clock, you don't have to eat because you're full. Right?
Yeah.
You eat steak and eggs in the morning. You don't have to eat at 10:30. Everybody knows that already.
You're full.
So then you go right to lunch, or maybe you're even full. You go right through to dinner, right? Because you're full. So then you count up all the, the white bread and jam and the banana for snack and the pasta and then another snack in the afternoon. You count that all up and you go, oh, it's because you ate too many calories, right? But what's the reason you took so many calories? Because your body is pulling so many calories into body fat stores because of the insulin, right?
Yes.
So if you say, but at the end of the day, all these people, they go, oh, look, you're eating all that refined carbs. It's because you eat too many calories. No, it's not. It's
Amazing.
The calories are just getting sucked into your body fat because you told it to go there.
Because the insulin was there, it sucks it in.
So you want to stick to lower carbs. So cutting down the carbohydrates is one way, but it's not the only way. There's actually a lot of ways. If you eat carbs, there's other ways to keep your insulin down. So you can look at the glycemic index, for example, because there's been studies, for example. So the glycemic index of foods is this index where scientists take a certain food and they just give it to like a lot of people and they measure the average rise in blood glucose. And certain foods are going to raise more, but you can actually take the same food and process it differently. So you can take, and they did this actually. So you can take oatmeal.
Yeah.
You can compare steel cut oats, which is less processed, to instant oats. And the difference is huge. So you can take the same food, which has the same calories, the same carbs. The steel cut oats, you see that because it's harder to digest, so therefore the glucose doesn't spike up. It just sort of goes up gradually and then goes down gradually. The instant oats are ground into this very, very fine powder so that your body absorbs all of it instantly. Excellent. So therefore glucose spikes way up, then it spikes way down, and then you actually crash and your blood glucose goes lower than normal, which causes you to be hungry because hunger is a symptom of hypoglycemia, right? So you can take the same food with the same carbs, same calories, but when they're processed differently, it has a very different effect on insulin, which means it has a very different effect on on your body. Because if
That's good to know.
if your insulin's going way up, remember you're sucking all that into body fat. Well, yeah, it's hard. You just have to look at how much processing there is. So generally, if you're looking at foods that are highly processed, like instant or whatever, that's going to be a marker. Things that are
so low glycemic index is what we're
you're
looking
looking
for,
for a
right?
low glycemic index. So even though you have carbohydrates, if you eat like beans, for example, beans have a very low glycemic index. They may be the same total number of carbs as, say, white rice, but the glycemic index is much lower. But you cannot do other things. So if you add vinegar, for example, that significantly lowers the insulin effect. If you eat the carbs later on in the meal versus early on in the meal, if you eat later in the day, it's worse than eating earlier in the day. So there's all these different effects that can affect it's not just the food, the carbs, the calories, but it affects how you process it, which affects your hormones, which affects how much weight you gain. If you don't eat, what's going to happen? Well, insulin's going to fall. As insulin falls, it's going to open up your fat store so that now you can take calories out of your fat, body fat, which is really why you have body fat in the first place. So you're not really doing anything cruel and unusual. You're using your body fat stores for precisely the reason you have body fat. It's not there for looks. It's there for you as a store of calories for when you don't eat. When you don't eat, you're going to take calories out. So you think, okay, well, how many calories are there? So you take an average person, say they're 200 pounds, and an average percent of body fat is 25%. And keep in mind, 25% is relatively lean. Most people who are overweight are closer to 40 to 50% body fat.
That's right.
Let's say, just for argument, you have 200 pounds. This is just for easy calculation, right? 200 pounds, 25% body fat, so a very muscular person, and low body fat. These people look lean, right? They look good. That's 50 pounds of body fat.
That's a lot. You would think. And it is, though. It is, right?
Absolutely. And the number of calories in a pound of body fat is about 3,500 calories per pound. So if you look at that, you've got 50 pounds times 3,500 calories is 175,000 calories.
You're set. That's like a big budget, right? You're rich. So what does that mean? Could you not eat for a day or two? And why do I know that you have a clinic where you do this with people, right, Jason?
Oh, absolutely, because people have at least that 50 pounds, which means that you're actually set for about 100 days. If you were to fast for 100 days straight, you would still have enough energy, right? Because it's about 1 pound of body fat for 2 days of energy. What do you think you're going to get malnourished from, right? Is it lack of vitamin B, vitamin C? Are you going to get scurvy? Are you going to get, pellagra?
Or how about losing muscle mass, right? Sarcopenia, is that the word?
Sarcopenia. And that's a very interesting thing because that's been studied forever. Because when you fast, your body predominantly oxidizes fat, not muscle. So if you're burning fat, you're not burning muscle. Your muscles do get smaller because they're burning their glycogen, which has water. But that's not muscle. Glycogen is not muscle fiber. When they've done the study, and I just reviewed it in my last blog, actually, they did a 10-day fast in this clinic in Germany, and they measured. So the reason people worry about muscle loss is because of the way it's being measured. So when you measure it, you do this. You either do bioimpedance or you do DEXA. Both of them, in both of those, body water is very similar to body fat. So when you do bioimpedance, you send an electrical pulse through the body. Then this is the things where you step on that scale that tells you body fat, right? Sends an electrical pulse and it measures how much it is. But body water looks the same as body fat on these scans. So when you lose body water, such as what happens with fasting, it looks like you're losing lean tissue, right? So the lean muscle looks like it's being lost. And so what they did in this Buchinger clinic study is they did put people on a 10-day fast, right? A really long fast, longer than most people do. And then they measured the strength directly. They told people, how much can you lift? What is your maximum grip strength? How long can you do this grip strength? What they found was fascinating because if you look at non weight-bearing muscles, the strength did not go down. If you look at, I think it was the non-weight bearing muscles, it went up by like 33%.
Wow.
It's like, okay, you're stronger than you were. Now that's part of
From
it.
fasting. I love it.
Yeah,
I
from
love
fasting, because what happens during fasting is that the sympathetic nervous system actually gets ramped up. So you actually get energized through fasting, not the other way around.
And do we also get this effect that many people have talked about called autophagy, which is very cleansing for the body, correct?
Yeah. So autophagy is this period of time where you're burning some protein, and everybody thinks, oh, that's so bad. But in fact, skin is extra protein, connective tissue is extra protein. Remember that it's not just fat that you have to lose. You actually have to lose all the supporting structures. So you can actually lose a lot of that. What happens
can help recoil
that,
skin to a certain degree, right, Jason?
Yeah.
The skin that may be sagging.
Yeah, because if you're only losing fat, then you have this excess skin and you have to do surgery. But when you actually have to burn off, because it can be pounds and pounds of skin. The important thing is to understand that it's all going to pass. That is, if you think about hunger during fasting, it actually, you will get hungry. So you have to be prepared for it, right? But the thing is that if you simply ignore it, that hunger actually just fades. And they've done studies on it. It's like, for example, when you work through lunch and you miss lunch, yeah, you're really hungry at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, you actually feel exactly the same. Because when they fast people, what happens is that your body simply, so insulin falls, your body now takes your 500 calories out of your body fat. Just like if you didn't go to Costco, then you went in the fridge and you got yourself a chicken sandwich and ate it. You're not hungry. You don't have to go to Costco again. Why? Because you had it stored away and you took it out of the storage. Well, body fat's the same. You didn't eat lunch. Your body went into its refrigerator, went into the body fat, took out the 500 calories, and now you're good to go.
I love
it's a problem if you don't have body fat like that, if you're at like 4% body fat or something, but most of us are way over that, right? Most of us are in that 25-35% range, so therefore it's not nearly an issue. So therefore you people worry about hunger because they think that it's going to go up, but it doesn't. It actually goes up and then it'll go down, and then the magic actually happens when you go, say, overnight, for example. So say you skip dinner, for example, then you're getting hungry at dinner, it passes, but then by the next morning after you slept, you actually completely reset. Your hunger level just resets.
Incredible.